Let's be honest, nurses. Nursing school trained you expertly to fulfill one critical function, providing exceptional care. But were you prepared for the reality? Healthcare is a complex ecosystem, far more than just bedside tasks, and you're expected to perform within it, often left in the dark about the financial forces that shape everything. Why weren't you taught that revenue cycle management, RCM, is the essential fuel, the oil and gasoline, that keeps this entire system running? Why are you expected to contribute to financial processes when you feel unprepared, leaving you potentially slow to respond and adapt within the system's demands? That gap in your education, that frustration? It changes now. Welcome to the Healthcare Nurses Network and Nurses Link Up mobile app podcast series. This is Breaking the Code, Nurses Unlocking Revenue Cycle Management. This series is your wake-up call. We're exposing the truth about RCM, cutting through the jargon, and delivering the financial knowledge you deserve, the knowledge that helps you navigate the full healthcare landscape effectively, not just the clinical side. In this crucial first episode, Understanding the Revenue Cycle, Why It Matters for Every Nurse, written by Dr. Nicholas Abello, we're igniting a revolution in understanding. We'll reveal the shocking reality of how RCM impacts your daily practice, the key stages where your actions are critical fuel, and how you can transform that feeling of being slow to respond or held back into proactive financial fluency. Guiding you on this journey to reclaim your power are your hosts, ICU nurse James Carter, BSN, RN, and nurse manager Emily Ramirez, MSN, RN. Get ready to break the code. Your RCM transformation starts right now.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Healthcare Nurses Network podcast. We're all about empowering you with insights and real-world solutions you can actually use, right there on the floor.
That's right. We're into a topic today that, at first glance, might seem a little bit outside of our usual hands-on nursing world. But trust me, this one matters. Big time.
Yeah.
It's all about the revenue cycle.
The revenue cycle.
Yeah. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, isn't that something the finance folks handle? Like way up in some office somewhere?
Yeah, I can see how some folks might think that, for sure.
And to be honest, for a long time, even I kind of saw it that way. But as I've learned more, especially digging into Dr. Nicholas Abello's work, day one, understanding the revenue cycle, why it matters for every nurse, well, it's been a real eye-opener.
What's been the biggest takeaway for you from Dr. Abello's piece?
It's that this revenue cycle thing, it's not just some abstract process happening in a silo. It's the engine that keeps our whole healthcare system running. And guess what? Nurses were absolutely crucial to making that engine run smoothly.
I'm intrigued. Break it down for us. How exactly does this revenue cycle, this engine, work, and where do we fit in?
Okay, so the common misconception is that revenue cycle management, or RCM, is just about billing. Like it's all paperwork and spreadsheets handled entirely by the billing department.
Yeah, that's definitely the image that comes to mind, stacks of invoices and calculators and all that.
Right. But the American Health Information Management Association, AHIMA, they're really pushing back on that narrow view. They emphasize that RCM is actually a collaborative effort. It involves every department in a healthcare facility, but nursing, we're right at the heart of it.
Okay, so it's more of a team sport than we realize.
100%. Without the accurate patient information that we gather at the bedside, without the thorough documentation that we provide in those patient charts, the billing team is basically flying blind.
Yeah.
They can't do their job effectively, which means delays in payments. And those delays have a ripple effect on everything.
It sounds like what you're saying is that every time we interact with a patient, every single chart entry, it's all connected to this bigger financial picture.
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction. Dr. Abello really drives this point home, and it's been a game changer for me personally. When we understand how our daily actions as nurses directly impact the hospital's financial health, it gives us a whole new level of, well, I guess you could say, ownership and responsibility.
So instead of seeing RCM as just this separate thing, the billing department's problem, we need to see it as part of the whole patient care journey.
Exactly. It's a continuous cycle that starts the moment a patient walks through the door and continues until that final bill is paid. And when we as nurses grasp that full cycle, it empowers us to really fine-tune our practices.
I'm really curious to dive into the specifics now. What does that actually look like in our day-to-day routines? Where are those key moments where we're making a difference in this revenue cycle?
Let's break it down step by step. First up, we have patient registration. Now, typically, nurses aren't the ones collecting all that initial demographic and insurance information. That's usually handled by the admitting clerks.
Right. So where do we come in?
Our crucial role is in verifying that information once the patient is under our care. It might seem like a small thing, double-checking a birth date or confirming the insurance provider.
But those small things can prevent big problems later, right?
Absolutely. By catching and correcting any discrepancies early on, we're preventing potential billing errors, delays in payment, and those dreaded claim rejections. It's like laying a solid foundation for the entire revenue cycle.
Okay, so patient registration, verified and accurate. What's next in the cycle?
Next comes charge capture. And this is where nurses, we are truly indispensable. Charge capture is all about documenting every service, every treatment, medication, procedure, everything that a patient receives under our watch.
So it's that super detailed charting we're always talking about. The more specific, the better.
You got it. And Dr. Abella gives a great example. Imagine a nurse is providing specialized wound care. But maybe because of time constraints or just plain forgetting, they don't document it fully or accurately. That means the hospital might not be able to bill correctly for that service.
And that missed charge, it doesn't just disappear, does it?
Nope, that's lost revenue for the hospital.
Yeah.
And that lost revenue, it impacts everything. Like Change Healthcare put out a report back in 2020, and they really drove this home. They showed how those missed charges directly affect the hospital's ability to, do things like keep staffing levels where they need to be. It affects the ability to purchase new equipment or invest in new technologies. You name it, it's all connected.
Wow. So our attention to detail, those thorough notes, they really do have a direct line to the quality of care the hospital can provide.
Right. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about making sure we have the resources to deliver the best possible care to our patients.
All right, so we've got accurate charges captured, thanks to our awesome nursing documentation. Where do things go from there?
That takes us to claim submission. This is where all that detailed documentation gets compiled into claims that are sent off to insurance companies and other payers. Now, nurses aren't usually the ones hitting the send button on those claims.
But the information we provide, it's basically the backbone of those claims, right?
100%. I was just reading a report from the Healthcare Financial Management Association, HFMA, from 2023, and they really emphasize this. If our documentation is missing key details, or if it's vague or unclear, well, those claims can get denied outright. Or they might get reimbursed at a much lower rate than what the hospital is actually owed for those services.
So even though we might never actually lay eyes on a patient's bill, the quality of our charting directly impacts how much the hospital receives for the care we provide.
It's all connected. Think of your documentation as the evidence that supports the claim. If the evidence is weak or incomplete, the insurance company is going to raise an eyebrow. They might not believe that the service was truly necessary or that it was performed to the level that we're billing for.
Okay, I'm starting to see the whole picture here. Claims have been submitted. Last stop, payment collection. What role do nurses play in this final stage?
So while the billing department handles most of the payment collection process, nurses still have an important role, especially during discharge. If a patient is confused about their bill or has questions about what's covered and what's not, we can guide them to the right resources.
Point them in the right direction, whether that's the billing office or financial counseling services.
Exactly. It not only helps the patient get the answers they need, but also makes the whole collection process smoother for everyone involved. And that smoother process ultimately benefits the hospital financially.
All right, we've walked through each stage of the revenue cycle. But let's bring it back to what really matters, our listeners, and the patients they care for. How does an efficient revenue cycle actually translate to better patient care?
This is where it all comes together. AGS Health put out a great report in 2023 that really breaks this down. They found that when a hospital has a well-functioning revenue cycle, it means they have the financial resources to invest in the things that matter most. Adequate staffing levels, so nurses aren't constantly overwhelmed and stretched thin, up-to-date medical equipment, not having to make do with outdated technology. And all of that leads to a higher quality of care for our patients.
So it's not just about the money itself, but what that money allows the hospital to do.
Precisely. When the hospital is financially healthy, everyone benefits. Patients receive better care, nurses have the resources they need to do their jobs effectively, and the whole healthcare system runs more smoothly.
On the flip side, what happens when there are hiccups in the revenue cycle? What are the consequences of those inaccuracies and delays in billing?
Well, unfortunately, it puts a strain on all those essential resources we just talked about. It can lead to staffing shortages, which, as we all know, puts immense pressure on the nurses who are left holding the fort. It can mean delays in acquiring new, life-saving equipment, or even having to make do with supplies that are, less than ideal.
It really emphasizes how crucial our role is in maintaining that accuracy in documentation and data entry. It's not just about paperwork, it's about advocating for our patients and ensuring they have access to the best possible care.
I couldn't agree more.
Eh.
And it's not just about preventing negative outcomes. When nurses understand the revenue cycle, it empowers them to be more proactive and, really own their role in the process.
So it's not just about avoiding mistakes, it's about using this knowledge to make things better.
Absolutely. When we understand how our documentation impacts billing, we can make sure we're providing all the necessary details from the get-go. It reduces the need for those follow-up clarifications, which frees up our time to focus on what we do best, caring for our patients.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's about working smarter, not harder, by integrating this revenue cycle awareness into our everyday practices. What are some concrete steps our listeners can take to start making a positive impact?
First, I'd say just familiarize yourself with those 4 key stages we've been discussing: patient registration, charge capture, claim submission, and payment collection. Having that big picture in mind is a great starting point.
Makes sense. What else can we do right now to put this knowledge into action?
Make a conscious effort to double-check those patient details every chance you get. And when it comes to documentation, really focus on those specifics. Clear, concise, and thorough notes for every patient interaction and service. Don't assume anything is too minor to document. It all matters.
And don't be afraid to reach out to your billing department colleagues. Building those relationships and lines of communication, it's got to be beneficial for everyone.
Definitely. Often there's simple things that nurses might not even be aware of that cause big headaches for the billing team. Like maybe there's a particular piece of information that's consistently missing from certain types of charts.
I could see that happening, yeah?
By having an open dialogue, the billing team can provide valuable feedback to nurses, and we can all work together to improve the accuracy and completeness of our documentation.
So it's a win-win situation. We're not just preventing errors, we're actually proactively streamlining the entire process.
Exactly. And smoother processes lead to better financial health for the hospital, which ultimately translates to better care for our patients.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening discussion. I'm sure our listeners are buzzing with ideas right now.
I hope so. And if anyone's feeling inspired to learn more, I encourage you to visit healthcarenurses.net. You can also download the Nurses LinkUp app. It's available on both the Apple Store and Google Play Store.
It's a fantastic resource for connecting with fellow nurses, sharing experiences, and continuing to learn and grow in your practice. So as you go about your day, your week, think about this. How can you apply even just one of these insights to your practice? It doesn't have to be a huge overhaul. Even a small change in your documentation, a little more attention to detail during patient registration, it can make a real difference.
Every little bit counts. It's all about creating that awareness, understanding the bigger picture, and taking ownership of our role in ensuring that our hospitals have the resources they need to provide the best possible care to our patients.
Thank you for listening to the Healthcare Nurses Network podcast.